So let us start discussing tailwinds. So let us go to the earlier video.
Today.
I would say two things. One is build absolutely infinite appetite for bad news, and that's the first rule of entrepreneurship,
Yes.
not just education. Which means it's not a path paved with gold until you survive long enough. Second is, while you keep that, you shouldn't lose your optimism, your imagination. You should have a lot.
So what he's asking us to do is, while you have build an appetite for bad news, you also remain optimistic. But only, I'm not saying it is a condition, but only thing that I would add to what he said is you remain optimistic only when you made a case for being optimistic. Why should you be optimistic? Why do you think India will become from a 3 trillion economy to a 6 trillion or 8 trillion in the coming decade? Like 6 trillion in the next 4 5 years and 8 to 9 trillion in the next 10 12 years. Why will it become? What are the conditions will take us there? Why do you think it will go there? Unless you know this, when I say you, I'm saying any investor or the advisor that you trust. Let's say I should be aware of this. You cannot just remain optimistic because it gives you a good night's sleep. So that is the only condition I would add to what he said. And in this video, we will talk about tailwinds and how to think about tailwinds with respect to any economy. Okay, especially a poor economy like us, whose per capita is 2000. Okay, so let us see what is a tailwind. So tailwind is any condition or set of conditions that will help us grow. Okay. So now the question that you should ask is, what are the conditions and what are the tailwinds that will help India grow? That should be what should give us optimism. So before I start explaining you about tailwinds, there are two disclaimers which I would like to give you. One is, because of my not so good or great English, I may be committing small mistakes for which you should pardon me, because I don't want to repeat redoing the whole video for small mistakes that I commit. Second is, I'm only linking tailwinds and economy. Economy inherently is a complex system. Any economy is a complex system. To develop an opinion, you should. It's not just about tailwind. It's about many other things that you have to take into consideration, which I am not spending in this video. I am just today linking how to link what are the tailwinds that we think India has, or how to think about tailwinds in general about an economy, especially a poor economy like us. So these are the two disclaimers. And third one is not a disclaimer, just we should all be aware that when we discuss or think about economies like India, we are not at the same place as developed economies like US or Europe or Australia or any other economy which is already developed, which is whose per capita is 20 times, 30 times us. So our economic principles would be a little bit different. So that we should keep in mind whenever we are reading or anybody is saying anything and comparing US and India, the things like that. So let me jump into how to think about tailwinds. See, this is what you have done in your life. If you see, you have looked at where the tailwinds are, where the opportunities to growth are, and built the competencies. All of us either did engineering or MBBS, I mean doctor, or did a finance degree, or tried to get into government, because that is where you had an opportunity to become bigger. When I say bigger, economically, you had an opportunity to become richer. So that's what any parent does. That's what you may be doing to your children or your parents have done to you. They are looking where the tailwinds are and helping you build competencies. They are telling you, boss, do engineering, do MBBS, try to get into a government job or do a finance degree so that you can become rich in your lifetime. You can't go watch movies like Three Idiots and start saying, I will become a painter, this is my interest. Among 100 painters, maybe one or not even, maybe among 1000, one will be rich and everybody else will be poor. But among 1000 software developers, most of them will be moderately well off in terms of economics. So You build competencies and ride the tailwind so that you grow. That's what we have been doing. That's what you are also trying to do with respect to your children, right? You are trying to see where the future is, where there is the highest growth possible for your children, and forcing them or incentivizing them or motivating them to develop competencies in that areas, right? You're telling them, boss, learn maths, learn coding, whatever. Because if you learn cricket, you don't know whether you will go there, right? You may encourage them. I'm not saying you should not do, but this is what applies to the majority. They have to build competencies in areas where there are tailwinds so that they can grow and become rich in their lifetimes, right? So apply the same thing to economies which are poor. And then you can ask me, is there any economy which has done? I would always suggest you to look at China, learn more about China, because that is one economy which has pulled 1.4, sorry to use that, 1.4 crores of people out of poverty, and their per capita is 5 times above us now. So we can use China as we can't do as fast as China, but we can learn from China. And we should also learn from China and US because they are really big in terms of population, right? We can compare ourselves and learn how they become rich when they were at 2000 per capita, what they did, when they are at 10,000, what they did, how they kept on growing, how they made sure that they always grew, right? So I am just using China because it is the most recent example, but if you are interested, you can always look at many examples like Japan, South Korea, Germany, which actually were poor countries, and China, which actually were poor countries post World War II and ended up becoming developed countries. China is not a per capita wise not a developed, but I would say it is developed country. Okay. So let me now take one example where India did very well. India did very well in one sector which is information technology. We started in 90s. We built competencies. What I mean by build competencies, we opened engineering colleges and taught our students or children coding. We we saw a tailwind in IT outsourcing, so we created policies and incentivized entrepreneurs to set up IT companies here and recruit people here. And we created the ecosystem in top 5, 6 cities like Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, NCR, and Pune. And then suddenly that industry took off, right? So we all learned coding, right? I didn't, but Indians learned coding. Many people who learned coding could ride this tailwind and become rich, or at least from a poor family or a lower middle class family could become a upper middle class or rich in the last one. Look at how many millionaires and crorepati's that industry has created. Look at the indirect beneficiaries of that industry, because look, just count the number of houses they would have bought, number of cars, number of how much travel they would have done, and the way they would have upgraded their consumption, right? From buying normal clothes to branded apparels, and the kind of spending they're doing wherever they go, right? So it's not just they becoming rich; they're also helping by spending on things. They're also helping other parts of the economy develop, right? But we can't. Can we provide? Can we pull whole of India using this one sector? No, no way. Even today, after 30 years, the whole of IT employees is close to a million or maybe a little bit more than that. And indirect would be, I don't have an estimate, would not be great. So to pull so many people out, to increase our per capita to 2000 to 10,000 and 15,000 and in the next 30, 40 years, what should we be doing? Simple. Look at China. What it did? It took sector by sector, it developed competencies and started having its share in almost every sector possible. Like 20 years back, if anybody said China mobile, nobody used to use China mobile. Today, I would take an educated guess that at least 30, 40% of us are using China mobile, right? And this has happened across sectors, from bulk commodity chemicals to high-end, high-tech defense manufacturing. They have done everywhere. You can ask me, why did they do everywhere? Because you need to provide jobs for crores of people. So you, wherever possible, you have to develop competency and become competitive in the world, so that you get the market share. When you get the market share, you start employing, and there is a virtuous economic cycle that gets created, right? I think I'm making sense to use what I'm assuming. that you need to, like, you could imagine what IT did to India, right? So what are the other sectors where we could do the same? We did it in pharma. We have started low end. We are not at the high end, but we have graduated from there. We also did it in chemicals. And in the next 20-30 years, I think we will have really high end pharma companies and chemicals from companies from India. Just take another sector like vaccines. Just imagine our country's economic uncertainty would have, how much it would have increased if we didn't have our own in-house manufacturing vaccine facilities. If we always thought, okay, boss, America and Europe will produce better vaccines, why should we do it? We will buy. Just imagine the chaos that it would have created in our country. We will start as a small generic vaccine manufacturer. Something like COVID will come where you make a lot of money. When I say you, I'm talking about those Indian manufacturers will make a lot of money. They will make, once they make a lot of money, they will reinvest and they go up the value chain. So now in the next 20-30 years, definitely you will have one world class or maybe few world class vaccine manufacturers, not just manufacturers, even research wise, top end vaccine companies from India. We already have. I'm just saying that, just trying to make you think like what happened in IT services. Top 10 companies, 6 should be India, right? And most others also would be employing Indians, right? Agreed? So if we can do it, we have to do it in as many sectors as possible because we have so many people to take care of in terms of increasing their incomes, right? Let me go to other sectors where we have not at all done well, which is a huge opportunity, but we didn't do. Is not sorry, is infra. Infra is a sector like building roads, bridges, flyovers. Is a sector. Let's say if India spent heavily on infra for 30 years, just imagine how many people who are uneducated could be catered and whose incomes would have been grown in the 30 years. We just started our last 3 years. I think if we can increase the way we were increasing in the last 3 years and keep it at that pace for the next 20-30 years, definitely a lot of people, it can employ people who are not even educated. Right now you will create a lot of world class infra companies from India. So you should do it in as many sectors as possible. Like we import a lot of apparel from Bangladesh and Vietnam and Philippines. We need not do it. If you just revise your policies, there is enough cheap labor here. You just do the right policies and acquire land and help the entrepreneurs, which we have done. Last year we have done it, and you can already see market share shifting here. Why I am saying we should think like China is because we have such a large population to cater to. We have people with different backgrounds, competencies, skills, and we have to provide as many jobs as possible. We can't say we are good at this, so we will only do this. Because then there are many people who need jobs for whom there is a lot of initial work that you have to do. Like take manufacturing. Manufacturing didn't take off in India. Why? Because each state has a different economic system. So the first thing that we did in the last, when I say we here, I am meaning India. First thing we did in the last 7 years is we did GST. If you go and ask many state governments, they would badmouth GST because GST has taken away their economic freedom. It has caused a lot of short-term pain to many people. But unless you create a single big market, nobody is going to see it as one big market and invest here. Right? So if you want manufacturing to take off India, what you have to do? You have to make sure land acquisition is easy. You have to implement GST. You have to make sure that your transportation costs are low. That means you have to have world-class roads, ports, 24-hour electricity supply, internet connection to the nook and corner of the country. All these things have to be done before investments pour into manufacturing. So just use the same mental model that you have done for you. You build competencies and ride the tailwind. The tailwind may be there. There may be huge manufacturing waiting for India, or not waiting. I'm saying there is a manufacturing opportunity for India. But India doesn't do GST. India doesn't build roads. India doesn't build ports. India is not going to have 24-hour supply. India will make acquiring land hell, then it won't take off. So you need to do the hard things, build competencies, and then do all the right policies, incentivize entrepreneurs, handhold them, help them, and then once the initial phase is over, it will take off. I think one of the tailwinds that when I say now we're talking about our company's positive is about the manufacturing in the coming decade. I think manufacturing in India will do very well across many sectors, and I will explain you in the next video what are the India specific tailwinds that we see that will take India to the 6, 7, 8 trillion in the next coming decade. Okay, but I would assume that you could appreciate the importance of tailwinds for